Steve Maggi, thanks so much for being back with us here on Tiempo. I hope all is well. I bet you've been busy with this latest decision from the judge in Texas.
Been busier than I would like to be, or for the wrong reasons.
Yes,
but it's
yes.
always great to be with you, Joe.
Let's jump right into it. On what basis did the judge in Texas declare that the DACA program was unlawful?
Essentially, he made a sweeping assertion that anything that's passed that could potentially change the status of someone in the United States should only be done through congressional action. And so he's saying that an executive order or executive actions on their face are unlawful.
In essence, is he saying that they overstepped their bounds? The Department of Homeland Security or the Department of Justice?
Absolutely is what he's saying. It's really an attack on the executive branch, which is interesting because what does that mean for all the other executive orders that have been passed recently? You know, under the Trump administration, there were over 400 changes in the way that the law is implemented. So the policy was directed in a completely direction through executive action. Does that mean that all of those executive actions are unlawful? It's a very interesting way to make a broad sweeping assertion, but based on just one specific set of facts. And of course, there's the other part, which is that he's allowing 700,000 people who already have DACA status to continue to renew it.
Yeah, I'm going to get into that in a second, but I do want to get into specifically what the judge's order means for new applications. Is it in essence that they will not be considered for a program that he deems illegal?
Essentially, now there are three classes of people when it comes to DACA. There's people who are already in, which is 700,000 people who can renew. There's 50,000 people approximately who submitted their DACA applications after January 20th when it was reinstated by President Biden.
Yes.
We're now on hold. So I have clients who have gotten notifications from immigration saying, you must wait now. You will not have an interview. We don't know when that will be. So they're on hold. And then you have a whole other class of people that we always talked about before, which is almost 1 million people as of June 15th of next year, in my calculations, will maximize the number of people who potentially could qualify, who are high school age and who came here before June 15, 2007. So we're talking about potentially 1 million people in addition that could apply between now and next June, who are also all on hold. They can't apply now until something new happens.
Oh my God! So what do you tell your clients? Do you just go through that same rundown with me and then do it with them so that they have an understanding? Because it seems like a holding pattern that has no end in sight.
Right, and we've had this holding pattern before, right? We had the Trump administration put a kibosh on this program for a long time until the Supreme Court said that the rescission was not lawful either, that was arbitrary. And so then President Biden was able to reinstate it. So what I tell them is that they have to be in a holding pattern, but I think they also need to be proactive. And that means to me, you have to contact your senators now, because all of this, as we know, really requires congressional change. And even this judge said we need congressional action, right? So the Senate is the one that can really make a change here.
I'm going to get to that because ultimately that's where we're heading. But the judge, if I understood it correctly, did not strike down the program in its entirety. And I'm no legal scholar, if my understanding is correct, current DACA recipients can renew their status every 2 years. As a third-party outsider, to me, that appears on some level to be somewhat inconsistent, where you're saying people in the program can keep renewing, but people who have never applied before can't apply now.
Absolutely, it's inconsistent, and that gives us a little bit of hope, and this is what I tell my clients, that when the DOJ appeals this case and it goes to a higher court, that we may actually get this decision overturned. And then, of course, we may see this go all the way to the Supreme Court. But because it's contradictory and inconsistent, and it's not a blanket stop of the program, including current DACA recipients, I think that it's possible that he's leaving the door open for an appeal which could overturn his decision. And that's the hope that we have.
Yeah, both the president and the Homeland Security Secretary are on the record saying, yes, the Department of Justice intends to appeal the judge's order. Any indication as to when that will happen and what the odds are of a successful appeal?
Well, I think that will happen as soon as possible. They're probably getting all their arguments and their ducks in a row now to submit. If I could predict the probability of success, I would play the lotto and maybe I wouldn't have to suffer with my clients anymore. But I think that the fact that it is inconsistent does give us hope that this will be overturned. That does not mean that we should not be pushing for Congress, especially now with President Biden using this budget avenue in order to push this through. Yeah. I think that he has to push, and he's really wavered on how much he's pushing for that and whether he thinks it will be included or not in this big $3.5 trillion budget plan. But I think that it's absolutely necessary to try.
Now is not the time for wavering, and I'm sure immigration advocates and attorneys like yourself are going to say that. So when we come back, let's talk a little bit about what's next congressionally speaking, because as everybody has analyzed it, that's the only permanent solution that would put an end to what has been an ongoing problem now for quite some time. So we're coming right back. Sit tight. Steve Maggi, very busy immigration attorney. Thanks for joining us once again, and for the insight, Steve, in taking what can be sort of a complex issue and a complex program and making it simple and easy to understand for all of us here at home. We've talked often about congressional action being the only permanent solution to making the problem go away for thousands of young students, young dreamers. How far away are we from congressional action to make that happen? Do you see it happening in the near future?
That's a great question. I think that we have the possibility as a nation to get these DACA recipients, not only the program reinstated, but get them on a track to permanent residence by using this budgetary avenue that we have, that President Biden has spoken a lot about, because there is no way that I foresee 10 senators who are Republicans passing the bill that's already gone through the House of Representatives, which is designed for dreamers and people with temporary protected status to get permanent green cards and eventually be eligible for citizenship. So I think that we have that possibility on the table. And I think that if the Republicans had a similar measure that they could push through in that way, I'm sure that they would do it if they had the numbers to their advantage.
I think it's called reconciliation, correct? Where you lump in this as part of a larger bill or program and get the whole thing passed, and that's one segment that goes through as well. And if you can get one for the Democrats and you can get one for the Republicans, then everybody hopefully is happy, correct?
Well said. So they need to find a way to appease the Republicans and put in measures and things that you can also classify under this budgetary avenue to make the Republicans happy in order to create this path for dreamers.
Let's remind everyone, DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. The program now, I think, is approaching, 9 years old, put in place by President Obama. And recap the history for me. The reason for this program was what, and who was it designed to help?
I think President Obama saw that there was a large and growing class of individuals who came here as children who had no legal status and had no protection from potential deportation. And he saw those people who have the ability to get an education, even go to college, then they weren't able to work. And there was a huge potential in this group. And there's children who came as, under the age of 16. They essentially grew up here in the United States. They identify as American. They're law-abiding. And one of the requirements was that they be enrolled in high school or in college and have no criminal record. So you're talking about people that we would love to have be our children. They're ideal potential U.S. citizens. And he identified that group and created this ability for them to have a path. But the problem is that it did not afford them any legal status. And that's why the DREAM Act was proposed a few years later. And we're still trying to push for some sort of reform to create a path for them to actually be full-fledged residents. Because right now they're still in a gray area in terms of legal protection. They can't even leave the United States and come back.
And Steve, how is it different now for those young kids, boys and girls, who came with their parents and they were 9, 10, 11 years old, than it was for other immigrants, perhaps like yourself, who came at an early age?
Well, this gives people an opportunity that they wouldn't have had otherwise. I came when I was 5. My mother decided to bring me to the United States. I had no say in this decision, just like all the dreamers didn't. But because she had been born in the U.S., after a 9-year process, I was finally able to become a legal resident. I was very fortunate that I had that, but most people don't have that ability. And so they need this remedy in place in order for them to become full-fledged members of society.
Steve, Can't thank you enough for the education and making it, again, simple for us to understand. On behalf of all the dreamers who are out there, keep fighting the good fight. Let's hope and pray that Congress, yes, can come up with a final solution and take care of these students whose lives literally do hang in the balance. And we hope there'll be a big party on the day that Congress passes that legislation. You and I can celebrate together.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure.
Steve, thanks so much. We'll talk again soon.